Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. Please like, share, and comment on the page. And definitely, as always, let us know where you are watching from. So, special thanks to my guest, Mr. Bradley Walken, for sharing with us about pest control. He was on the last show. He spoke about pest control and inspection in the Turks and Caicos Islands. He shared some great tips and advice on what to look for in your home to know if there are termites or other pests. If you did not have an opportunity to watch, please take the opportunity in your leisure time to visit my YouTube channel, which is Vernica Delancey, where you can watch the replay of every episode of Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. So like I said, like, share, comment on the page. Let us know where you are watching from. If you have a question, please add it in the comment section and we'll be sure to see if we can get those questions answered for you. So let's focus on the main reason why we are here today. I have a special guest, one of my Keller Williams colleagues from New York area in the United States, and I'm looking forward to speaking about the differences in the market, the buying process, the purchasing process between both countries. In the Turks and Caicos Islands, we have a lot of buyers that comes from the United States, and therefore I thought it's a good reason to have such a show to explain and to understand the difference in the process. So I will take this opportunity to say, welcome, Mr. Vinny Thompson, to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. Please go ahead and formally introduce yourself.
I need an applause for that. That was a great intro. Man, thank you, Monika, thank you. Yes, my name is Vincent from the Ask Vinny Thompson team. That is my logo. My .com is chock full of information about New York real estate. I am a Keller Williams agent here serving the Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, and surrounding suburbs. I've been in full-time real estate for 7 years. I've been buying and investing in real estate for the last 25 years. I really like it. I'm an agent that's full-time, on the ground, hands-on, getting my hands dirty. I have about 7 people on my team. I have a buyer's agent, an admin, and I have 2 virtual assistants that help me get things done at a high level. My former career, I was in law enforcement for 15 years, and I've been full-time since 2015.
Cool. So far, so good and going strong.
Yes.
So tell me, what actually intrigued you to become a real estate agent, actually, and are you still loving your career choice?
Okay, so now, Vinica, this is my story. It's not supposed to make sense to you or your audience because it's my story, okay? So way back in 1990, I wanted to become a realtor, about 91, 92, but I got scared, finished college, and went into the police department. So while I was in the police department, I always wanted to do what I'm doing right now. So I figured, let me do it part-time and do investing. So between the 20 years of policing, I probably on my own had up to about 15 houses. Got smacked around during the recession. That got cut in half, but I kept going, biding my time, having a great career now in the police department until I got a chance to retire and do this full-time in 2015. I always wanted to do real estate. I always imagined myself with the big desk, and people coming to me. I'm like, oh yes, come on in, Vinica, let me help you. You're looking to buy, sell, invest? All right, have a seat here, fill out this paperwork. Me and the team are gonna take great care of you. It was just something I always wanted to do. My father kind of was he was in real estate. He had a commercial building here in Queens. He didn't teach me a lot about the background of real estate, but I knew how to break concrete, fix roofs, toilets, and do the manual labor as a young man of taking care of buildings. So that was my love on the other end of it.
Oh, that's cool. Well, your story is more exciting than my story, actually. But I'm glad that you are still loving real estate. And obviously you are doing a great job in real estate. I do follow you all the time on your social media, Ask Vinny Thompson, and just want to say to you, keep up the good work. And And I just want to backtrack. When I first started real estate, actually, that was not my first career choice. I actually started as a legal secretary for a sole practitioner. And then after that particular attorney left the Turks and Caicos Islands to, do something else, that's when I decided to have a career choice. And I was like, okay, you know what? My dad always say he wanted one of his kids to be in real estate. Why don't I give it a try? And that really was my motivation, because my dad is really my all in all and really my confidant. And so I took his advice, got into real estate, and since then, no regrets. I have been loving it.
Nice.
So that's cool. So today we're going to talk about some of the differences in real estate in Turks and Caicos, or there may be similarities that we just don't know about, and that's why we have you on here today to break it down to us. Like I said before, we have a lot of investors, buyers who come from the U.S., and I think this is a great opportunity to be able to understand these differences. So when I became a real estate agent, I had to understand what's the difference between a broker, a real estate agent, and how do I get my real estate license? In the Turks and Caicos Islands, actually, the broker is really the owner of the company, and we as agents work for the brokerage. So the license is actually held with the broker, and we as individual agents, we don't have an actual real estate license, meaning we are actually under the license of our broker, right? So that's how it works here in Turks and Caicos. I mean, can you just give me a little bit about how it works over there, and if you have different classifications of license, and you are also referred to as realtors. So I think that you'll be able to break it down a little bit for us.
Right. So similar to your system, we are agents, but we do have our own license, and we work under the brokerage, right? And it's a 75-hour class, which gives you really nothing about real estate, to be honest with you. It's only, it says a real estate license. I'm only teaching you how to protect the consumers. The real experience in real estate comes in doing. So if you want to be a broker, I think the number was, don't quote me, after 2 years in selling a certain amount of houses, you can apply to become a broker and then be independent. And then you can be the broker of record. And then I can hire people under me to work for me and with me, as a real estate agent. But I hold the title of real estate agent. And at Keller Williams, we have the broker of record, which is Shamir Fazal. And he's a great broker. But the owners are OPs, right? Operating principals. People put their money together to open up the Keller Williams. So that's how it's really done here. So you have agents that have to work under a broker until they want to work on their own and maybe open their own brokerage.
Right.
But some choose to say, hey, that's all well and good. I'd rather put my nose to the grindstone, be out there and make good money and not try to be, hurting other realtors into doing more work.
Yeah, I heard you mention before about the real estate exam. If you can elaborate on that a little bit for me, because here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the real estate association, just for example, that most agents decide to become a part of, it's not mandatory to be a part of this association, but there are many benefits of doing so. So, but if you decide to be a real estate agent, and you decide to be a part of the association, we actually do have an exam that you have to sit in order to, once you've passed, to be a real estate agent. Now, that's a one-time exam. And other than that, you will be under the guidance of your brokerage. And then you will have continuing education through the real estate association. So how does that work with you guys?
Yeah, so here, if you want to actually practice real estate and take people's money, show them homes, open the door, abide by the rules, and be licensed, you have to get a license from New York State. The New York State Department of State says if you want to practice real estate and do these things under the guidelines of New York, you have to get a license. But let's say Vinica says, Vinny, you know what? I got $4 million I'm sitting on, and I just want to come to invest in New York. I'm going to say, yeah, sure, Vinica, here's my address. Let's just invest. And then I don't need a license if I'm just going to buy and sell on the private market and not deal with the public on that level. So if I really want to transact real estate and do these transactions and join, like you said, the multiple listing service and, rent apartments and
Mhm.
conform to what the public needs to know, I have to get a license for it.
You're right, a license. How long does the real estate, but in terms of a real estate exam, um,
Yeah,
is it a one-time exam? You know, what about it? How did you take the exam? Is it one time? Is it continuing education exam you have to take every so many years? How
right.
is that?
So it's a 75-hour course, and you do every 2 years have to take continuing ed. I believe the number is 20 hours every 2 years. Unless you got your license way back in 90 something, you may have been grandfathered into it, and
Were
you
you
no longer.
grandfathered in? Just kidding.
No, excuse me. No, absolutely not. No, no, I wasn't grandfathered into it. No, no, no. So yeah,
Yes.
I think it's like 20 hours. You have to take because you need to know what the new laws are. Um, uh, Anti-discrimination stuff that pops up now, which is big here in New York, always has been, unfortunately, and know what the guidelines are. The rental guidelines, because New York, obviously, there's more renters than owners, so you need to know, what classifications, what classifies for finances and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a continuing ed portion every 2 years for you to keep your license.
Okay, cool. So now that you're a real estate agent,
Mhm.
I will ask you, share with us probably what do you think makes a good real estate agent? Like, what is your value proposition if you want to start with that? And then let us know what you think makes a good real estate agent. Then I'll let you know what mine is.
All right. So we spoke offline, Veronica, of how real estate can be in the US, and then there's the New York market. The New
Yes.
York market is crazy with the K.
Mhm.
Always has been. It's a huge price point. And with so many small pockets of the way that they do real estate, you really have to be the local neighborhood expert for that. If you can, I would say the true way to survive and be a good realtor is join a team or be heavily counseled or be in coaching. Because, like I said earlier, they only give you 75 hours. That is not enough for you to go out there and truly serve the public at a high level. It's just not, because there's so many things that go on in real estate, and knowing the difference in let's say, a neighbor like in Jamaica
Mhm.
versus crossing the street going to Jamaica Estates.
Right.
You have maybe one price point of 700,000. Oh wow, I'm into 1.2,
Right.
right? And I could sell grandma's house in Brooklyn that may not be a high end area for $102 million, and it's really something built in 1880, literally, that investors want. It's just a highly sought after area that people want, end users want, investors want. So you mentioned value proposition. My thing is, we do a lot of prospecting in Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island to help serve a lot of our clients. So in the other part of America, people move every 7 years. I'm going to say in New York proper, my clients look at either they're going into the box and going down into the ground, to be honest with you, or they're moving family. They stay for 30, 40, 50, 60 years in their home.
Mhm.
So we try to have a proposition of helping them paint, declutter, and get their home ready for sale, because many of them are older, family has moved on, and by the time mom or dad are ready to move, they don't have any help. So my value to them is that painting, decluttering, and getting the house ready to kind of make it like a white box for the new owner to come in and paint their own canvas inside their house.
Cool. I like what you said about, getting connected with a team. I think that's a really good point as, I mean, for anyone who's aspiring to be a real estate agent, even though you can do it on your own, it's always good when you can have that collaborative effort. You can have, someone to assist you with administrative work and everything you do, you
That's
know?
right.
So that's really big, being a part of a team. But what I would like to say also, I think that, being a good quality for a real estate agent, you have to be a good listener, because it's not just about talking all the time, but it's about understanding the needs of your customer. And also I would say it's very, I mean, having patience, like you said, about the type of customers you have in New York is so much different from other places in the States. And you have to have that patience in order to wait, for those customers to be say, okay, I'm ready to move out of this neighborhood. I think that's really good. And I want to say that my value proposition, I think that I normally bring to customers is my people at Keller Williams always say, oh, she has grit, because I have long tolerance when they have a short one. So I think that's something you really need to have when you're in real estate, because it's not an overnight transition, it's not an overnight transaction, but you are dealing with so many different personalities, and you have to just have that perseverance and endurance while dealing with your customers.
To say the least, Venika. And look, it's been long said that New Yorkers are rude. There's a lot of truth to that. It's a tough place to live, and New Yorkers are tough. And you don't get to live 70 years in New York and not be tough. And they're good, but I'm tougher. So
You're tougher. Trust
I'm
me.
here to get the deal done. You call me,
You're gonna get it done. Just ask Vinnie Thompson. Come on.
what you gotta do? .com. AskVinnieThompson.com. So you gotta do.
I really like that. AskVinnieThompson.com. That's very catchy. So in the Turks and Caicos Islands, many of our buyers come from the United States and Canada, but many of them are second home buyers and investors. Where would you say that many of your buyers come from, and what are their main reasons for buying in the U.S.?
And once again, it's hard for me to say, because New York is that ever-changing place where we discussed before, like taking Queens where I live at. We have countrymen from all over the entire world. So I've had older couples that work for the city, in their late 50s buying their first house, born and raised. And I've had people that are immigrants that have been here 3 years that have, saved, 10% down and working hard jobs that just want to buy. So when I'm speaking to my coach, because I'm heavily coached, I have a social media coach, I have a Keller Williams Maps coach, I have a financial coach, and I said social media coach, yes.
Yes.
So my coach, I'm saying, it's hard to tell where my buyers are coming from. They're from here, there, and everywhere. Some are 30, some in their 50s. So just have to be ready, do heavy marketing, and just try to push it out to the masses to let them know, hey, I'm here, if you want to buy, sell, invest.
Cool. I just want to pause for a moment just to say, all of you who are listening, if you do have a question, it can be about real estate in the US, it can be real estate in Turks and Caicos, just send it in and we will be sure to answer those questions for you. If there aren't any questions, of course, Vinny has a lot to say, and definitely I can match him in conversation. So I'll ask you this. One of the questions we are asked a lot of times in the Turks and Caicos when we have, because like I say, we have a lot of buyers, international buyers, is, can we purchase property in Turks and Caicos? Who can purchase property in the Turks and Caicos Islands? So, and our response to that is there is no restriction on foreign ownership, right? Is there a restriction in the US as to who can buy into your country?
I believe you have to be, at least, don't quote me, a green card holder to purchase and have a social security number. So other than that, you can make a purchase. I know sometimes depending on the dollar amount, they'll let you purchase. That's a bit out of my realm, like some of those Manhattan oligarchs and those kind of things. Sometimes even special visas, depending on the price point, if you make a purchase here. So generally speaking, anybody can buy as long as you meet the requirements, by the state and the Fed to make a purchase, meaning in that person's name. It's not saying you can't buy in other family members' names, but you do have to have those criteria to make the purchase here in America.
Cool. So if you were to make a guess, what percentage of buyers you would say is actually cash buyers versus financing buyers, and are mortgages easy to obtain in the US?
So I'd say right now, they are cash buyers, but they may not be investors. There may be somebody like my sellers in Brooklyn who mom was there, she's 70 years old, and now the kids are getting $1.2 million and they want to take 500,000 and go buy in Long Island, So the cash buyers, I'd say right now, probably I'd say 15, 20% of the market, with a mixture of end users and regular investors looking to make a profit, or someone to park their money for investments. And as far as the process of getting a mortgage, once again, if you have a competent realtor, they
Ask
can
Vinnie
really explain that
Thompson.
process. I had a lady, she came to me and my partner, she says, I have $20,000 to make a purchase of a home, and I want a seller's concession, meaning that the house may cost $500,000, and we try to see if it appraised for 520. We can use that $20,000 seller's concession to match her 20 to get her into the home. And I actually found a 2-family home for her to get her inside. She wasn't quite ready and didn't know how fast we moved. She pulled back and they sold that house to someone else. She calls us 2 months later, said, I'm ready for that house. I said, Miss, that house is long gone. And by themselves, they might not know the mortgage financing options that are catered to that specific buyer and how they can get into a home, because they're not supposed to know. They're the consumer. So I believe real estate transactions are done by 90% of the people use a realtor, and the other 10 use a realtor eventually.
Right.
So you need a realtor to help you get in, to understand what are your mortgage options? What's your family situation? Do you have 20% down? Are you looking for a program? Or are you a 20% down buyer? Or are you cash? Do you think your cash is king in this market? Nah, not really. I tell my clients 45 days from now, you're going to get the same thing as the cash buyer. Do we really want to give them a discount when we have 20 offers? Maybe not.
Right. I get where you're coming from. Like you said, at the end of the day, it's the same money. Now, I'll say in the Turks and Caicos, for us, again, having so many purchasers who are international, because there is a difference, obviously, in the interest rates. This creates an issue as in whether they are getting financing or cash. So many of them will actually take out equity in their homes and bring the cash to Turks and Caicos. So they become cash buyers, or they will refinance and bring the cash here, just because for them it's easier doing that and getting a better interest rate here. I mean, back in the US.
Right.
Now, but that doesn't mean that there aren't options in Turks and Caicos that will cater to a mortgage for them. So you do have banks, the commercial banks that would lend, and you do have mortgage companies. Of course, the mortgage companies will lend you, when I say quicker, like the turnaround time for the mortgage process, like for example, they can approve a loan, some of them within a week to a week and a half, 2 weeks. The longest part of it most times is getting the appraisal just to make sure of the value of the home. The commercial banks take a little bit longer. So there are options for international buyers in Turks and Caicos who would like to get something here, but we find that many of them actually go that route just because of the interest rate, take the takeout instead of coming and doing financing here. But the option is available to those buyers.
Okay, now is the interest rate comparable to the rest of is it comparable to like the rates in the US, or is it higher, lower?
The interest rates. I'm asking the questions, not you.
I'm sorry, okay. I'm just wondering.
No, I'm
like
having fun. No, we're good. You know me, I'm just having fun. The rates are actually, first of all, banks don't like to quote rates. So
Okay.
so as I'm quoting these rates, don't hold me to it, but
Of
you can
course.
find rates from 6.5% to even 8%,
Okay.
when it comes to interest rates here. But it differs depending on the situation.
Okay.
But obviously you can tell that they are much higher than what you are actually accustomed to.
Sure.
So yeah. So on that same note, do realtors in the US have the option to do closing? So in Turks and Caicos, we provide preliminary agreements, just to make sure all the terms and conditions are set out in the offer. And then we encourage our buyers to actually go with an attorney, and the attorney does the closing. Are you allowed to do closings with your contracts?
Right. So once again, it goes state by state.
Right.
So my friends in out of state, like in some parts of the South, there are realtors who can write a contract, put in the information. They send the fees into a settlement company. The settlement company takes care of the title, and they go to closing in 2 or 3 weeks, and then they're done. Here in New York, it's an attorney state. You have a seller's attorney, a buyer's attorney, and a bank attorney. We are attorneyed out here. And we just put preliminary things that go into the contract in
Right.
like a binder sheet and then send that off to the attorneys. And many times we have those allied resource of attorneys that we work with and do a
Correct.
great job and are full-time. And we want real estate attorneys. Sometimes my sellers need
Sorry for
well.
cutting you across, but that's a
Right.
really good point. I had someone on the show before, and she specifically said, make sure it's a real estate attorney. So it's so interesting that
Yes.
you brought that up. Go ahead.
Yes, because I've had criminal defense attorneys. I've had international law attorneys who were great attorneys in their right, but they were not real estate attorneys. Don't get me wrong. I like to see them on the other end of the deal, but not working with me, because then if they're a weak attorney, we can get a really good deal for our clients. But for my clients, we'd like to have full-time realtors and full-time real estate attorneys, and that's their only practice. Because otherwise, if they're court attorneys or defense attorneys, they really don't know how to negotiate for their clients, and it becomes very messy, right? Because as realtors, we do all the heavy lifting, and it's just a handoff. Okay, attorney, just finish his 10%, get us in, take care of the middle, and get us out. And if they're not specific to real estate, it could be a problem, especially because New York is what's called an attorney state. And they write the contracts. We try as best we can to negotiate them, but sometimes it gets in the attorney's hands, it gets a little bit messy. So we try to negotiate, keep as much control of the deal as we can, put our ego in our pocket, and get to the closing table.
I like how you say that. Put your ego in your pocket. Yeah, but definitely here it's the same thing. We recommend an attorney for the buyer. The buyer has its own attorney. The purchaser, the seller has its own attorney, and also with the banks have their own attorney. But I will say this: what we have here also is that it's not mandatory that you have one. But as agents, we always recommend and refer because that's the right way to go. In the US, I'm assuming that it is mandatory to have an attorney.
When you have an attorney state, that's a good question. Is it mandatory? Or just maybe a really bad idea? I'd have to double check with you on that. That's a good question, because I don't think this is where there was one.
And I'm asking that because we have customers who come here, when you tell them that, they're like, okay, do we need one? And so that's why I'm asking you, because to know what's the practice there versus here. And then the other thing we have international customers who would ask us, can we use our attorney in the US? And our response to them is, you cannot. You have to hire an attorney that's in the Turks and Caicos who's practicing real estate here.
So let me answer, and I have a better grasp of the question. So no, you don't. Should you? Absolutely. So you don't really need, or it's not mandated that you use an attorney, but there's so much paperwork involved. I don't know how you would get around, not having one. And I've seen one, and it turns out really bad.
And it's just very beneficial to have an attorney to protect your interests.
For sure.
Yeah. Have you ever, last question about this attorney, have you ever had I know you said there's an attorney for every part of the transaction. Every person that's involved. Have you ever had where, just say the banks, because they're doing the mortgage, had being the attorney for the purchaser as well? Has that ever happened?
No, not for a bank attorney. No.
Okay.
There may be instances where you may want to use one attorney for the buy and the sell, but not for the bank, because the bank wants to protect their money.
Yeah.
And he's a bank attorney there to just ferry the transaction. So, nah, rarely.
But buyers and sellers have used the same attorney.
Yeah, there's instances where that may happen. Not rare, but it has probably happened before.
Yeah. Same here. It's rare, but it has happened. We normally advise against it, for conflict of interest, but very rare. So just want to make sure. So, okay. So now, in the Turks and Caicos Islands, we do not have property taxes. So this is one of our really good selling points. Instead, we actually just have a stamp duty tax, which is a stamp duty fee that differs from island to island, and is based on the purchase price, the percentage. So you have property taxes. So
Mhm.
do you have, I mean, how do you determine the tax that is conveyed on the property of real estate? And how is it paid at the end of the transaction yearly? Just give a little light about property taxes.
Right. So there's different taxations for one families, two families, and commercial properties, right? And that normally is paid for the city, state, and local taxes at the closing. As far as federal, where you may find out with that tax bracket, that's something personal that you'll have to pay on August 15th at the end of the year to the federal government. But the
Right.
city, state, and local taxes, that's when you have to pay those, at the table. If you have an outstanding bill, many times they'll, tally the bill, especially if it's old or maybe if there's some unpaid taxes that can also be paid at the closing. Yeah, so the New York State and local taxes are paid at the closing.
Okay. So what I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give to first-time home buyers? And I guess tell me what are some of the critical things that they need to know, or do you want me to start this time?
Mm, mm. This is the bane of my existence right here. Dealing with trying to understand the millennial buyers who want things right now. They want the granite countertops, the hardwood floors, and all the niceties that is just very hard to get in New York, especially if you're a home first time buyer. You may
Mhm.
not have the finances to compete for those renovated homes, which most of our homes are not. Most of our homes are grandma's house, like I told you, older homes, because New York is an old city. It's
Right.
common to find a home 70, 80, 100 years old. They
Correct.
had some renovations over time, but when it comes to a buyer, you got to tell them, look, in my presentation, I show them older homes that you still may have to pay more money for. But it's kind of like your first album is not going to be great, or your first deal. You're
Right.
going to have to love it, turn it into something that you like. And I like to put it in a comparison to, let's say, an arranged marriage. I don't love you now, but later on, I'm going to learn to love you. That's your first house. It's your first house. The thing is, stop the rent clock, right? Get in and make it your own. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow unless you're really a hungry buyer. And the truth is, ignorance is bliss. The less you know about the home buying process, as far as I want to be very fancy, I saw on TV, Instagram, those are not real buyers that are ready. They're more renters, not ready to switch the mentality to
Mhm.
owner, in my experience. So if you're really hungry, easy to get you a house. Because you see that green kitchen and that purple bathroom, you're going to say, yes, I'm going to make it my own.
It's just cosmetics. Those things can be changed.
It's
Yeah.
correct.
So, I mean, I like that. For me, I normally like to tell my first time home buyers really get pre-qualified because I think that's a really big thing. And I'm sure it's a big thing for you there in the US as well. A lot of times, like you say, especially in the millenniums, a lot of people want all the the glamour. And they have so many, I mean, so high of an expectation, which is good in a way. But if you don't know what you can afford, then it makes no sense thinking about all the glamour if you want to get into the market. So my best advice I think I can give to first time home buyers, get pre-qualified. I cannot say it enough because we all think we can afford, I'm just using a number, $1 million. And then we find out there's just one glitch in the process. Therefore, we can't afford the $1 million. We could only afford $850,000. So that does make a difference in what we are looking at and what we can get. And I also think by being pre-qualified, it allows you to be ready to move quickly because of the market, especially now where it's a seller's market in Turks and Caicos, and I believe it's the same over in the US, but you can correct me with that. You have to be ready because there are so many competitors out there. You have to be ready. You have to be willing to even tweak your expectations a little bit. But I think being pre-qualified so you can move quickly, I think is one of the best advice I can give, to first-time home buyers.
And I think there's a part two to that, especially for first time home buyers, of what bank should I use that caters to my situation? And I've had people that say, hey, Vinny, I want to use the municipal credit union. That's a bank a lot of city workers like me use to do banking because it's free.
Mhm.
And they may get a pre-approval from that bank. And have to tell them very bluntly, look, you can get a pre-approval from that bank, but that bank is not known for doing mortgages. If I present that to a listing agent, they may not, look at your deal favorably. When I go to a mortgage banker, to our other point where they only do mortgages, that's their main job. And I like to go to the 1099 employees like me that have to give you this amount of service before they can get $1. As opposed to, like me, I had a job, I'm an hourly wage. Yeah, look at your file, maybe not now. No. Let's go. This is New York. Let's get this done. I want to call you at 6:30 on a Saturday.
Yeah, I like how you said that. This is New York. I want to call you on a Saturday, get it done. And I'll say this, please forgive me for saying this, but it's the truth. New Yorkers move quickly. They want things to be done quickly. Someone walk into our office, just by having the first few words, I can tell, hey, you're from New York. What part of New York are you from? They always laugh. It's because, like you say, everything is like on speed dial and we got to get it done. Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. Yeah, but that's a really good advice. Like you say, just making sure of that they are into giving real estate mortgages, a mortgage company versus just anybody saying that you're pre-qualified. Yeah. But I think we're on the same page. Get pre-qualified, make sure you're ready to move ahead and get that transaction going. So cool. So what are some of the contingencies that you would have in a day-to-day offer? For us, we have a lot, we have freehold title in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And one of the things we normally ask for also with our sales is about having survey certificates for our land parcels. When I say freehold, because then you actually own, in most cases, the land, the dirt that you're actually building your home on, right? And so we ask for a survey certificate just to ensure that all the boundary markers are in place. There's no encroachment or anything with the properties. We also have contingencies, like if you're in a residential area, we'll ask for a copy of the HOA fees and ensuring that they're up to date so that the previous owner is not leaving you with a bill that you need to assume. We will ask for contingencies that, subject to financing, but we'll have a date that's set in. What type of contingencies do you guys normally have in a typical offer? I know contingencies can go so far depending on the transaction, but I mean, just generally.
Right. And it's funny how different parts of the state, different parts of the world, how these terms in real estate are different. So when you say contingencies, my mind thinks differently. That's basic to us title insurance information, meaning doing a survey for the property, right? Making sure there's no liens against it, that the old owner had.
Yeah, we don't do title insurance. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you guys don't do title insurance?
Not like that. Because of our freehold title, it's like an absolute title. It's a guarantee from the Crown about ownership of your property. So we have land registers. So it's a different process.
Right.
Go ahead.
And I believe I've heard that comparison, especially to a lot of my friends from the Caribbean, where you don't really own the land. You pay $7,000 taxes on that property until you die every year. So it's the house, not really the land. So yeah, you can have the house free and clear, but we still want our $7,000 every year once you've even paid the house off on.
Not here.
Yeah, because if you'd imagine, right, I still have to have police come to your house in case of emergency. I have a sewer system. I have sanitation, and I have to do the concrete. I have to do certain things in a more densely populated city area, and you only pay a portion of that. And when it comes to, I forgot, what's the other part of the question you had, Anika? Oh, contingencies, right. So we say contingencies, my mind goes to, okay, like I have a seller right now, we just put the house to the market. She needs the cash from the sale of her home to buy the next home.
Right.
So I'm thinking
that could be a contingency as well for us.
Exactly. Right. So we need to close on this, let's say by July 30th. And she wants to stay in the house until August for free because we're cute like that. We want you to wait to move in, right? And then you get the house after you've given us your money and we secure that. We have appraisal contingencies, meaning, I had 20 offers and they're all above asking. Sir, if this house doesn't appraise, are you willing to pay an appraisal gap? Because the bank may say, I don't think this house is worth $850.
Right.
We think it's worth $800. Are you willing to pay $50,000 more? That could be another contingency. So that's the way I think of contingencies in this market. to help the buyer and the seller in a limited housing situation get the house that they want.
We have some of the same contingencies too. It's just
Okay.
like you say, it's just worded a little bit different.
Right.
But some of them are actually the same.
Right.
And when you were talking earlier, I like how you explain it about how, you have city sewage, you have the on call of the police and all these type of things. And that brings me to this point, because that's a question that's normally asked of us as well. They are concerned about, all of these things. We don't do city sewage, etc. So somebody who comes to buy, of course, you're having a standalone home. You're responsible for having your own septic tank or
I'm okay.
digester system or anything on property. So then that's at your expense and that is at your cost. Same
Mm.
thing when it comes to water. You can decide to connect to the city water or not if you want to. So it is a little bit different.
Right.
But we do have that, yeah, freehold title where you own the land.
Okay.
Right. Questions about sellers. What should they expect to do or know when listing a property for sale? Do you find that they are dependent on the advice of agents when deciding on a listing price? Come on,
So
ask Vinny Thompson because he has the
hey,
answer. Go ahead, Vinny.
look, I'm known for beating up these sellers on the price. Gotta fight them. Gotta fight them early, Vanika, because based if the consumer, they're gonna go on zestimates,
Mhm.
which we know are not the true practice of real estate. So when a seller
Right.
sees a sale, they think a sale is a comparable. No, the reason why they got 100 grand more because they just renovated their entire home. They have an extension on the back, and they've done extensive work to it. That's not a comparable. That's just a sale. So you have to explain to them that the market doesn't care about me, you, or Vanika. The market cares about the market. It's what they're willing to pay. The science was done for us already. Mrs. Jones has an older, well-maintained home with the same bedrooms, the same square footage, and a similar yard. She got 510. You can get anywhere from 490 to 510 as well. No, I want 550. Mrs. Jones, that's not your number. That's not going to cause us to sell. Our higher price point is going to cause those other ones to sell. You want to go to Florida, right? Yes. Your grandkids are waiting, right? Yes. Because we don't price above the market, be priced out and be the highest one. I want to be the prettiest girl at the prom, which I assume that's what it is. You got that well-priced listing, Vanika, your phone is ringing off the hook and you're like, got them. And then the house gets sold. You got lots of offers and backup offers. So pricing is the key, as I'm going to think is a usual thing for sales.
Yeah, I think pricing is key as well. But one thing you mentioned about, about same square footage, et cetera. One thing about here in Turks and Caicos, I think it's easier to compare, like in the US, apples with apples and oranges with oranges. But for us, we have such a diverse product. And there's no one home that is the same. We don't do cookie cutter homes. So it is a little bit different for us, more challenging to come up with prices. But at the same time, I like what you said, for most customers, it's about guesstimation. And, I do encourage them to take the advice of the realtor this is your profession, and you can guide them in accordance with where their property is. And sometimes, like you say, just like you say, a seller may have their neighbor sell for this price, and they'd be like, well, if he sold for that and got that, get it, I can do the same thing. But it's just that there's so many variables sometimes you have to consider when thinking about prices. But definitely pricing your property right so that it won't be sitting on the market for a long time, I think is very key. Very
And,
key.
and I think how you break it down to them, because I just don't like to use charts and graphs. I go a little more, I break down pictures and show them in my listing presentation what truly is comparable to them, what sold. And I'll even go above that price point because I know they're going to say, oh no, but Vinny, the house right the corner sold for $1 million. You take a look, which one would you choose and for how much? And then they can see a real world experience of why you're the realtor of choice and why you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes someone said to me recently, also about real estate. He actually is really into numbers. He's a finance guy and he has a finance business. And he was saying it was so easier dealing with customers from that side. But when he came into real estate, he noticed that real estate is so much different. It's about pictures and emotions,
That's
all of
right.
these things compared to just numbers. Of course, there are persons who follow the numbers, but for the most part, people need to see visually pictures and stuff when you're selling, especially purchases. They have to be attached to that. They have to visually be able to
That's
see
right.
themselves in that place
That's right.
when buying.
Mhm.
So talking about homes, we're wrapping it up. Oh, I tell you, 45 minutes goes, there isn't any watch on my arm.
I'm
45
telling
minutes goes
you.
goes really quick, especially when you're talking to Vinnie Thompson.
Ah,
Yes, goes really quick. So we're almost to the end. If you have a question, please send it in. Um, please send it in. I'll definitely be able to answer any questions. Sorry, I was just seeing a thing that came through. But what is the price per square footage of property? So for us in Turks and Caicos Islands, this is a very hard question for us to determine price per square foot, even though we have an idea of, what it will cost. But it all depends again on the how much bells and whistles also may be in a property, location, all of these things will do. But what we'd like to do is tackle it more so from, what's the average sale price if the question is asked for us. And based on our sales for 2022, we've actually had about 48 single family homes that have sold, and our average sale price is 1.98 million. Of course, I'm asking you this question, but for anyone who's listening, you would want to know, well, what's the significance of knowing this information? It's the significance of knowing this information is so that you will be prepared for when you're ready to buy or even sell, so you could know what type of price range that you should be looking to, that you can be expected to be paying in this market. And for us also, I would say with condos, we sold about 88 condos for this year with an average price point of 1.2 million. So it shows you that when it comes to all those properties that may be below that price point, the inventory list is very limited. So you have to be prepared coming in at $1 million plus if you're looking for a single family home or a condo, in Turks and Caicos. What type of prices are you thinking of, just on average? I'm not quoting you to it
sure.
in terms of in New York.
And it's funny you mentioned that. I would say probably the average price in Queens is about $700,000 for a single family home. And when you mention those, it's so niche, the markets. I can go to Brooklyn, and if it's a two family that's been in the family for 80 years, and there's a total fixer upper, that can easily go for over $1 million. So it all depends on the area that you're in, and really have those comparables, and then explaining to your buyers, here's the real numbers. And then they may dig up something online and say, oh, Billy, that's sold for 400,000. No, that was a short sale. No, that was a sale to another family member. That house was a burnout. So we have to really educate the consumers on what real sales are and real comps. So I'd say about $700,000 for a single family home right now.
Okay, that's cool. So just want to make note. Sorry, just want to make note to say, Amy, I saw your comments. Thank you so much for your comments that you have in the section about, lawyers, real estate agent in U.S. versus Turks and Caicos. Your comment is noted and appreciated, right? So I have actually, I have a few more questions, but I'm actually only going to ask about, I'm going to ask two more questions and then we're going to wrap it up. All
Okay.
right. So first of all, what type of market do you have in the US? Like I mentioned before, we actually have a seller's market. What do you have in the US? And you know what? Use this opportunity to explain to people, I guess, the difference between a buyer's and a seller's market.
Right. So right now we're on the tail end of a seller's market. Speaking to my coach that coaches people all over the country, we feel like the buyer's market is coming. So when you start to have a lot of sellers putting their home on the market and the home is going quickly, a lot of inventory, a limited inventory, you're in the seller's market. But when you have months and months of inventory and you see the prices coming down, that goes into a buyer's market, to put it plainly. We are not in a buyer's market yet in New York, but I will note that since the last 2 months, the interest rate has gone up about 1.5 to 2%. We're seeing less buyers. Homes is sitting longer and more price reductions. So it feels like we are sliding into more of a buyer's market as more inventory is coming, and the buyers may be getting a little bit of a break on the price. I say may because the interest rate has gone up. So it seems like it's always the time is now for buyers to buy. So right now we are in the seller's market because of the limited inventory. We feel on the tail end of the seller's market.
Right. So we do have the same thing, limited inventory. We're in the seller's market, but it's interesting that you said that you may be, maybe turning it around to a buyer's market because of the increase in interest rate. What comes to mind with us, because we are already a higher interest rate, we would not be, well, you know what, I don't want to say we'll not be impacted like that, because most, just say, our international buyers who come here, they already know that the interest rate is high, and many of them are prepared for it. But I know it's a big turnaround, and that has been a lot of whisper and talk about it among different group chats about the interest rate. And I know that's a big concern for people in the US, where these interest rates are coming. I mean, you said like 1%, 1.5% increase.
Right. And I'm not concerned with that because it's normal. And many experts say the interest rate was artificially suppressed for a very long time. 2% was never normal. 3% was never normal. 6 and 7 is normal for people to pay. And the fact is they want to slow it down because of inflation, and they actually want people to buy less. 6 million homes sold in 2021 was not normal. 5 million in 2020, and then 4 million a year before that. Those are more normal sales. So it's not that it's going down. We believe it start to normalize because it could not, continually just go up, 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 and up. We have to do something to bring inflation down and get prices back to normal. And I'm okay with that. But I hope a lot of realtors now depend on their team and their markets to really understand that market to continue to do business.
Cool. So I'm going to wrap it up with this question before your closing remarks. So in the Turks and Caicos Islands, what are some of the perks? And then you can tell me what are some of the perks of buying in the US. So perks about buying in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Oh, our beautiful beaches. Winnie, you got to come down.
Yes.
Our beautiful beaches, of course, they're pristine and they're to die for. And obviously our weather, we feel like we have summer almost all year round, which is the truth. Sometimes it get a little bit hot, but that's one of our main attractions for people coming, our sun, sand, and our sea. Of course, there's no property tax, so that not paying that annual tax is really a good plus. The fact that we have freehold title, I think that's a really big thing for us, that you have such absolute title and you have such guarantee from the government in terms of ownership, property ownership, and you don't have to worry about it. I think that's a really good thing. I think also our close proximity to many of these places, so many direct flights to New York, to Chicago, to Miami, there are so many direct flights. I think that creates ease of travel for a lot of people who want to come down and purchase a second home. Also we have a number of islands to choose from, and each of our islands are unique and different in its own way. So when you come to Provo, Vinny, you also got to go over to North Caicos and Grand Turk to see the difference in what it has to offer. So, and also we have the US dollar. I think that's really good because a lot of international travelers, they look forward when they're thinking about exchange rates, you don't have to worry about that. So, because we have the US dollar. And I think that the environment is just ripe for investment, and our economy has been strong. I think these are really good things that attract people to the US. So now, still the Turks and Caicos, of course. Tell me what US has to offer anyone who's looking to invest.
Sure, I'd say, so in the Northeast, I do like the hot weather, and I, like many New Yorkers, around November, you start to feel that chill. And you start to think, all right, it's time for me to book my ticket to go, to some island or go to Florida or the warmer climates. But honestly, as someone who's lived in the Northeast for, over 50 years, I do like the change of seasons here in New York. where we go from, by the end of the summer, I'm done with the heat. I'm ready for cooler weather. I'm starting to like the winter less and less, right? But like anything, I think once upon a time, maybe 15, 20 years ago, rent was a much smaller amount of what someone's income was. I'm going to say right now, in many parts of the US, especially in New York, the rent is very close to what your mortgage payment could be, depending on where you want to be. So owning is really great. I mean, it's a forced savings. It can create real wealth for you and your family. It's the start of a legacy and the pride of home ownership. No matter where you're at, you can buy something somewhere. So, in Queens, I said 700,000. You go further out to Long Island and get something maybe in the high 3s and 4s, right? The trade-off is going to be the commute, but you can get something, or go to our neighboring states in New Jersey and Connecticut and get something for you and your family. So I think the pride of home ownership, for savings and a legacy, has always been a great reason to buy real estate, and no one can kick you out because it's yours, unless you don't pay those taxes, right? You gotta pay those taxes. They don't play with their taxes.
Definitely, definitely. The pride of home ownership, I think, is key. So yeah, it's been really great having you on the show today. I just like your energy. You're very knowledgeable about everything. Just definitely anyone who's in the New York area, please hit Vinnie Thompson up. Just
Yes,
ask VinnieThompson.com. That's so catchy, so you can't forget it.
that's
And
right.
and he's really a pleasant person, and he loves his work as as a real estate agent. He's definitely someone you need to connect with if you're looking to buy or sell in New York. I'm going to give you this a few minutes just to do closing remarks at this time.
Listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Vanika. I always like these platforms. I do a lot of social media, understanding that that is the wave, and having, these platforms express what you can do for your clients and how you can help is really excellent. And in this day and age of transparency, I can't say, hey, Vanika, I sold almost 100 houses and not be telling the truth, because I can go check, and that's what we have. And I love to help my clients at a high level, especially my elderly clients. And you mentioned pictures before. I like to do a lot of videos so my sellers can see the amount of effort I'm putting in. And I want to track the buyers into the home to see what it is online first and see it for the second time in person. This is a business that I truly do love. I'm going to try to convince my kids to get into it. You never can tell. It's a business that I love. And either way, they're going to have to manage the legacy of the properties that we own here in New York anyway. But it's been a pleasure. I hope your viewers have learned some information. If they need me, I'm here.
Right. So easiest way to contact him, ask VinnieThompson.com. You can get all of his contact information there. Thank you once again for joining us. And definitely I want to say thanks to all those who are listening and for being a part of the show. Definitely we're going to be back next week on Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. And until next time, I want to say to you, stay safe and remain blessed. Have a very, very great evening. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk, and Let's Talk TCI Real Estate guest or host will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer.